All right, let's kind of look at this. We did it all abstractly. Let's look at this with some real stuff here. So let's say I have f of x equals, I don't know, let's do x. Normally in class I'd ask you guys for a number, but I'm getting no feedback from anybody because there's nobody here. So let's do 7 over 2. So x to the 7/2 power. I want to know the domain, and I want to know the range. And I'm going to give you a rough idea of what this graph's going to look like. So let's just kind of rewrite this. This is my root. So I have, that's called a square root because 2 is a square, x to the 7th power. Well, this is an odd number. So that means my signs are going to stay the same. Well, we know we can't take a square root of a negative number. So in this case, I can't have any negative numbers for x because negative 8 to the 7th is going to be a negative number. I don't care about what number it is. I care only is it a positive number or a negative number, because I can take a square root of only positive numbers or 0. I cannot take the square root of negative numbers. So I can only put 0 and all the positive numbers in here. I cannot put a negative number in here because of this odd root. So my domain is going to be from 0 to infinity. Easy enough. Let's think about my range. Well, if these are only positive numbers for my input, I can only have positive numbers for my output because I've never taken a square root and gotten a negative number. Not if I did it correctly. So my range, I'm going to start at 0 again because we could do 0, and that's going to be infinity. So this graph is going to look something like this. Like a square root graph, something like that. We may get some of these with these powers that kind of look like this, but it's still the same. They're starting at 0, 0, and it's in quadrant 1 from 0 to infinity, 0 to infinity. Either way, that's what it's actually going to look like. So let's look at a different scenario. Let's say g of x will be x to the 3/5 power, odd and an odd. So I'm going to rewrite this as the 5th root to x cubed. Let's talk about domain, and let's talk about range. All right, so let's just think. 0 will work here because 0 cubed 0, and the 5th root is 0, 0. So we know 0 is included. 0 is going to be included in all of these. But let's think. Positive. This odd means that my signs are going to stay the same. Positive, well, an odd root means that your signs are also going to stay the same. So odd and odd means your signs stay the same. Positive. So if I have a positive number, so think of positive 1. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, and then the cube root of 1 is 1. It didn't change. The sign didn't change. The number may change depending on the positive number. So really, I could put any number in because let's think of this. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1 times another negative 1 is a negative 1. And then the 5th root of negative 1 is negative 1. So any input that I put in here, positive or negative, I can get an output. So my domain is going to be from negative infinity to infinity. And the range, well, you can see you already have positive and negative, so that's going to be from negative infinity to infinity. Not terribly bad. And let's look at another scenario, h of x. Let's see, we've had an odd and an odd and an odd. So let's do an even, x to 4 over 7. Oh, I should probably show you what this graph looks like. The graph kind of looks, it could look like this. It could look like this. That's what these graphs look like, something along these lines. All right, x to the 4/7 power. This is going to be the 7th root of x to the 4th. All right, this means the odd means my sign is going to stay the same. Even means my sign's always positive, no matter what I put in. So let's talk domain. My domain here, x to the 4th. I could put negative 1 in. I could put negative 5 in. Because a negative times a negative is a negative. Times a negative times a negative. Wow, I confused myself. A negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive. And a positive times a positive is a positive. So there's always going to be positive. So my domain here is going to be from negative infinity to infinity. My range. Well, let's just think about this. What happens if I put a negative number in here? It turns to a positive. And then if I take the 7th root of a positive number, it's positive. If I put a positive number in here and I take it to the 4th, it's positive. And then if I take the 7th root of it, it's positive. So my range is actually from 0 to infinity because I'm never going to get a negative number. These graphs kind of look they look kind of cool. They kind of look like this or some other variation of it. You can get stuff like this. You can get stuff like this. But the fact is that you're never going to get a negative number. So that's how you do it with numbers. Before was just kind of give you the general format on how these actually work out. Not terribly hard if you just kind of think through these processes, knowing that an odd number means that your signs are going to stay the same, and an even number underneath as a power is always going to be positive. And because this is even, you can only take, if it's an even root, it has to be a positive number. Hi, I'm Mr. Buzzard, and these videos are supplemental instruction for my students. If you found the video enjoyable, make sure you click the like button and click subscribe, as well as the bell for notifications to receive future videos on high school mathematics.